big man looking at the portfolio. But I've also read a bit about what you've been doing so far for Ghanaians. I mean, for the past 20 to 15 years, or 15 to 20 years, how you've supported the economy with your expertise, knowledge, and how was it for you? And why did you leave?
It was a very good.
You are the Ministry of Finance.
Yes. You never get any better training than at the Ministry of Finance because of the rigor, the detail that you have to go through. So it trains you. It makes you solid. So at a point, we needed to acquire new experience. So that's the very basic.
No, you needed to get to a higher level of control to be able to support. I mean, what you do for the EBID, support communities, support the growth of the economies and so on and so forth. But I can safely ask you this. This is of the sport. Do you think we are moving forward as a country, looking back from where you sit and looking at the macroeconomic indicators? And I know that's what you deal with a lot of times. The figures that we are having, the inflation rates, the exchange rate, the fuel pricing, and so on and so forth. From where you sit as an economist and a financial expert, do you think we are going forward as a country?
I think we have to contextualize it in the sense that when you look at the safer zone, for example, where the safer is pegged to the euro, they have a history of low inflation, always under 5. In 2022, where we had the inflation spiral, most of them went beyond 5%. So it was a global phenomenon, which also affected Ghana. And it affected countries differently based on their policy responses, monetary policy, fiscal policy. So everybody felt it. But because our currency is not very strong relative to the safer zone, that is how come ours depreciated the way it did. And
Is it because of the regime we are practicing? We have a central banking system. They don't have central banking system. Is it because of that? Would you advise that we move away from the central banking system and get to follow what they do, or we stay with the central banking system, let businesses be able to operate the way they want to?
They also have a central bank, except that the central bank is for the 8 countries. So no single country can decide or determine monetary policy.
Right.
All 8 of them have to come together to decide. And the currency has been pegged to the euro right from the get-go, from 2000. So it doesn't really change. In our case, we operate a floating exchange rate regime, which means that if our exports are not very strong, if we don't have enough reserves, that affects the stability of our currency. So if there is any situation that triggers the dollar to increase, then our imports actually become more expensive. And since we are an import-dependent economy, that has a lot of negative ramifications for our economy.
Now, from where you sit, you must be interested necessarily in all of these economies and how they operate with their regime and all of that. And based on that, I will now come and ask you what the bank is about, what exactly you do. Is it what we perceive, or there is something peculiar? So when we hear the ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development, what should we look at for those of us who are lay and maybe are hearing it for the first time or have heard it before, but we don't know what you do? Is it an institution that we can just come up to you for a loan, or what exactly is the bank about?
The ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development is what we classify as a development finance institution, DFI. So DFIs are quite distinct from commercial banks. DFIs are not deposit taking like commercial banks. You can go to EcoBank or Fidelity and open a bank account. We don't do that. We rely on capital payments by our shareholders and also borrowings from other institutions to finance projects. So it is possible for someone to walk in for a loan, but like a regular bank, you need to meet certain criteria. We have certain thresholds, and we have, because we are development focused, we have certain parameters that need to be met by the project that is presented. One other reason why we are very different from commercial banks is that we have what we call additionality and development impact. Additionality simply means that we do not just give loans. we have long tenor loans to give, 10 years, 15 years. Commercial banks don't necessarily do that because they are profit focused. And also we look for development impact. We want to alleviate poverty, create jobs, and ensure environmental sustainability. That is our focus as a DFI. And that is what sets DFIs apart from commercial banks.
And who are your clients? What's your focus? Do you deal with governments? Do you deal with maybe multinationals, or you deal with local big institutions? Who are your clients, and how do you operate?
We deal with everyone. We have two windows of operation. We have the public sector, which deals with government, and then SOEs. Then we have the private sector, which deals with non-government entities. So we have had investments in Kempinski, for example.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Wow.
We have constructed roads, the Flower Road, for example, public sector. We have done the Bekwai Hospital as well. We've extended the facility to CBG.
No, I'm interested in, for example, the hospital and the hotel, because what I see, I see more of infrastructure, as in roads. I see more of, you have mentioned services anyway, so it would necessarily capture the hotel industry.
Yes.
And I've seen energy.
Yes.
But I mean, to see that you are supporting hotels to come up to build up the industry is also very key.
Yes, because we have changed our business model a bit, because the private sector is able to create jobs at a faster rate than the government, the public sector. So in our new strategic plan, the focus is on the private sector. And we have extended facilities to manufacturers, to hoteliers, and to banks to be able to reach out to SMEs. Because we are more or less a small development finance bank. We don't have footprints everywhere. But the commercial banks are in-country and are able to monitor projects much better than we can. So as part of mitigating our risks, we are also able to lend to SMEs who otherwise would not have been able to access our funds. But passing them through
these commercial banks in the countries, you're able to. And exactly. I've seen some of the ones that you have supported. The recent one that you did with the country of Guinea and exactly. some other projects.
And it will interest you to know that we are the largest founding shareholder of EcoBank.
Oh, really? Yes. The largest founding shareholder?
Yes. And we are
so they pay dividends to you?
Yes. And we are a founding member of ASCAI.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Then you are not, I mean, you said a small institution because you don't have footprints everywhere. If you are the largest founding shareholder, by inference, you are virtually within every part of, for example, Ghana, Nigeria, and all of these countries where EcoBank is. And ASCAI is as well.
It stems from the developmental impact focus. Because then at the time, there was a thinking that most of the banks in West Africa were foreign owned. There weren't many local banks. So then the bank, together with various actors, came together to form EcoBank as a regional bank. And you had to go to Europe if you wanted to connect from Togo to Nigeria, for example. So then we had to create an airline which would make it possible for us to have direct flights in region. So
now let me ask you this: you admit that we are lagging behind when it comes to infrastructure, and the data is very bad compared to other developing continents or other developing regions, and it's not something good to write home about. And that's why you are there. You want to make sure that the gap. Are we moving forward as for example, a region, as a block? And is it feasible to even be able to bridge the gap?
I think that various governments in the recent past have made some efforts to invest. You go to Senegal, railway projects. You come to Ghana, for example, we have four-tier building or the road complexes. You go to Nigeria, you have new airports, you have new railway stations, and so on and so forth.
Ghana has a new airport as well, the Terminal 3.
Exactly. So the pace of movement is what is not as fast as it should be. And it's because of the resource constraints that we have. And that is why we saw it necessary to come up with this roundtable, with this topic that we want to discuss on Tuesday, to look at ways by which various institutions and actors can forge together to address some of the infrastructure gaps that we have in our sub-region, not just in Ghana, but also in Nigeria, also in Cote d'Ivoire, and so on and so forth. So the World Bank actually came up with a study, and they posted that because of the lack of infrastructure, GDP does not grow as fast as it should.
Exactly.
Like 2% slower than it should. And you have a situation whereby even to trade, there is a problem because our road networks are not good. Our railway lines are virtually non-existent. So that constrains trade. So there is a need for us to come together as institutions, like-minded institutions, to find ways of addressing some of these bottlenecks.
Forgive me, I don't want to put you into politics, and I'm not going to go there. But I want to ask, on the 5th of November, when you sit around the table and you begin the discussions, what are the thoughts, areas, and topics we should be expecting if we are watching you from wherever? Because when I sat down, or personally, I can think of, for example, the issue of politics, political will. I mean, to make sure that these infrastructure are coming up the way we want it. And we see our leaders travel across the globe, and they see the roads, they see the high-rise buildings, they see the hotel industries, they see the hospitals, they see everything. Why don't we have them here? Is it because of corruption? So all of these, are we going to see, and you are supposed to be financing, and so you have to be interested in these. Are we going to see these come up in the discussions on Tuesday?
They will come up. So there are a lot of moving parts. Corruption is one, but I think the most critical is the lack of finance in our part of the world. We don't have strong financial sectors compared to Europe and America. And that is why we keep talking about the Eurobond market. We have to go there to source funds to come and develop our countries. And if you do that back to back, you're also growing your debt. So your debt to GDP actually increases. And then you have to use a lot of budgetary resources, revenue to service those debts. It gets to a point where you could be spending as much as 70% of your resources to service debt. It becomes unsustainable. So beyond the desire to develop infrastructure, you should also look at a situation whereby if you don't take care, you might borrow yourself into debt.
Yeah.
Like what has happened to Ghana, where our debt to GDP ratio actually reached 90%, or we've brought it down to 80%. But government still has to borrow because some development needs to take place. That is why we have the 91-day bill, treasury bill going on, the 181-day bill going on, and so on and so forth. So you may have the desire to develop, but you have to contextualize it. Otherwise, you might overborrow, and then that could create problems for you as well.
And all of these, I don't want to take the wind out of the mill, and I would leave the discussion to happen on the 5th of November. But what time is it starting? When are we? Who is invited? How are we getting on? And all of the information that we need, because this is something that everybody, and for me, even though it may be a very high level discussion, I'm imploring SMEs, startups, and everybody to get involved and to watch as well, because eventually this is supposed to support the entire economy and the small scale industries, not only the large scale industries.
You're right. So the program starts at 11 a.m.
11 a.m.
Yes, at the Metro TV studios.
Okay.
On Tuesday, the 5th of November. On the panel will be Dr. George Ajokum Donko, the president and chairman of the bank.
Right.
And then Dr. Robert Talisio, who is the World Bank country director for Ghana, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. Mr. Rajesh Ne, who is from the Shapoji Palonji Group. And then engineer Magnus Kwashi, who is the CEO of Delim Consult Limited. So these are the people who will be discussing how we can pool resources together to develop infrastructure in our sub-region.
Okay, and 11 a.m.
11 a.m.
11 a.m. Right here at Metro TV.
Yes.
You'll be live, not only on Metro TV. Are you live on social media as well?
Yes, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter.
And what do we need to do? Do we need to search for ECOWAS or
Bank.
EBID?
Yes, ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development on all those platforms.
All right. So I have a lot of questions.
I know.
But I'm sure that I'll come back to sit in the audience and I'll put up my questions when you allow. Are you going to allow for open sessions where people can ask questions and so on and so forth? So if somebody is watching from the house, you would allow the space for people to send in their questions.
Yes.
Moderator reads them.
Exactly.
And then you get to answer them.
Exactly.
Super. So, I'll leave you here so that on Tuesday, all of us can watch and make notes. And then if there are any follow-up questions, we'll gather them and send them to you. So thank you very much for joining us tonight. If you are watching us tonight, we're asking that Tuesday, 5th of November, 11 a.m., you've followed the discussion. You've seen where it's going, the infrastructure deficit or gap here, especially in West Africa, and how the ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development stands in to bridge the gap. What kind of support are they bringing to investors? Are they bringing to countries? Are they bringing to their development partners, and for everybody to be able to benefit? So what are the resource actions we need to take as countries, as a continent, as a region, as a bloc, to be able to solve all of these problems and advance forward? And you have had Dr. Joseph Asenso telling us about all of these. But he says that on Tuesday, 5th of November, you need to join us at 11 a.m. Just tune into Metro TV and follow us online on social media as well. You just get to the ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development, either website or their social media platforms, all on the social media platforms, each of the platforms that you are on. You can follow us and you can send in your questions during the discussion. So take note, Tuesday, 11 a.m., we have Dr. Robert Talisio, Rajesh, and Magnus Kwashi, all of them joining the president, Dr. George Ajikum Donko, to have these discussions. I'm sure it will be exciting. Let me allow you 1 minute for your final words and why everybody should join, what you want to tell us, and then I can allow you out of the studio.
Thank you. Like you said, infrastructure deficit is a big problem for all of us. We want to create a platform for all of us to brainstorm and to pull resources together to develop same. It may not be a one-day event,
Exactly.
but at least that discussion paves the way for that collaboration. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doc. We're happy to have you, and we hope to join you on Tuesday. So thank you very much for passing through the studio. We'll see you on Tuesday. So with that, I would want to take a quick break. When I come back, I'll be talking to you, or I'll be having another discussion, and this is about some locked up funds of some people, some investors, not just people, who have picketed at the Ministry of Finance. They have had various engagements with the Bank of Ghana, the Ministry of Finance, for their locked up funds to be released to them. They have evidence of some monies, of course, all of us do, that have been paid or released for payments to some people who had their locked up funds paid back to them. They said they want to be included. They have not been listened to by the Ministry of Finance, and so they are picketing. This is about the 12th time they are picketing. Luckily, Mr. Asenso has left the Ministry of Finance. I would have asked him about it, but I'll take a quick break here. When I come back, we engage in that discussion and we see the way forward for our brothers. Stay with us.
Over 5 million children have benefited from free SHS. Protect free SHS. Vote Dr. Baumia, #1 on the ballot.
This is my secret. Give us P capsules. From now on to me, to my give us P capsules. Obedu as mama. Oh no, enemy lawyer.
And to lawyer no na show bottom. Are you bro? Again, now upon permission about Chiamwa as a new day. No. You nephew, I can't wait. A friend give us cold capsules. Say yes, is Yara and the walls to cocoa the do nip a dim when in our posa a mamma and Tima Winja will name you. Wouldn't give us cold capsules. Obey your free
lawyer.
Give us cold capsules.
And I give us P capsules.
Hey, and they give us free.
And men what if you do what you do one effort. Give us core capsules. I pay for a batch one more menu for one and Kwadawi if you do me no come.
Yeah, you know I do it for you.
With Showmax, your favorite characters now follow you anywhere. Download it today and watch the best in local, international, and everything in between.
Abraham Ojecheso, mo from Tuna Manfi. Mammy from Nanya, the Dukia, one man, I saw in the autumn. Papa sometimes listen to this compost so nippy. Macatama to me, so nippy. Teach them Bobia Sana. If you grab pad at a native pampoyade in your beauty, when you are no for, I'm seeing penny. Until me what your chest in an major right to me, yeah, maybe I could shade man, I'd make a day. Nti yewo from tinuma okada akufo adote free SHS number na me le rade me da wase ti musumo to my de na BSS na ma abotie school ti mo ba na sometimes for wishes I dey be school boy you are me dey me bo sometimes musu da ma me le rade ti afisu me be bo su me nya hwe school ya je school fees simple my gari sugar na miro na adi po ya di dey be be ya da be school na ka te bo che school fees aka the Biamakada Kufad Wamba, the obey president, and a dolly free success, no agility. None of me accupod, no bad or both were here. You can't cut to work, same one, and each other up a pennyable. One may have say, ye were papa corner, there will be other man you so. Yen your quiet see school. Nay, ye cash at the young day, young good aim, my sitter, your book corner, yes, see our woman.
Protect free SHS. Vote Dr. Baumia, #1 on the
You're welcome back from the break. This is still the bottom line. We'll do this one quickly, or we'll try as much as possible to run through it. I have in the studio Dr. Anani Enchi, I would say my very good friend. We've been in this fight with him for some time now, since 2019. He's a convener for the people who have their investments locked up. So we say locked up investment holders forum. He is a convener, and he's been in this fight since we heard about the domestic debt exchange program, where governments wanted to do some financial arrangements to maybe relieve or support or with domestic investors who had their investments locked up through, let's say, the collapse of some financial institutions and through COVID, and then to some microfinance institutions and so on and so forth. I would ask him, first of all, about the successes so far. We've seen that the Securities and Exchange Commission has made some commitments, and whether he's happy about it, and what is this new fight about. For the 12th time, they have picketed at the Ministry of Finance. There was a time that we saw some very high-ranking officials of the Ministry of Justice or the Supreme Court also picketing with him at the Ministry of Finance. We saw red bands and so on and so forth. If you went to the Ministry of Finance and saw some very old men, led by Dr. Anani Enchi, picketing there for their funds, it was an eyesore. But we have him here in the studio. Doc, good evening.
Good evening.
And thank you very much for joining us. It's good to see you. And you've been at this fight.
Yeah.
I told the viewers I'm going to ask you whether you've been successful and whether you are happy about the news you are having now about some release of funds. Are you happy about it?
Yeah, happy. Also investors whose funds. I'd like to make this correction. The earlier picketing was for the pensioner bondholders.
Pensioner bondholders, yes.
The Chief Justice, former
Chief Justice, joined you.
We had great success when we were finally exempted, even though we went through a lot of struggle with government. But at the end of the day, finally got the exemption. What we are doing now is for people whose funds are locked up, not with government, but with finance institutions, really financial houses, finance houses, and savings and loans. Basically, we are now dealing with NDK Financial Services, SIC Life Savings and Loans, Bond Savings and Loans, and SDC Financial Services. these are the institutions whose clients have come together because they cannot access their courses, some of them for 4 years
But some
now.
of them are still running. They are still
They
in
are
operation.
all running.
They are all in operation.
They are
SIC
all
is still
running.
in operation.
But
I know Bond is still in
Yes,
operation.
yes.
NDK I cannot say,
they are,
and SDC I cannot
they
say,
are
but
all
SIC
running.
and Bond,
That
they
is
are,
the challenge. But they cannot operate the way they should operate. They have become distressed or insolvent. And that is why we organize ourselves and petition the Bank of Ghana that under your own laws, if an institution is to see that an institution is going to be insolvent or become distressed, you are supposed to start some resolution measures. But these people, some of them for 3-4 years, they have become distressed. So what are you doing?
but Doc, I'm sorry to cut you in. I am asking this because I know you, and I know you have a long history as an expert in the banking sector. Have they declared insolvency, or have they said they are distressed?
Well,
have they told the clients that they are distressed?
When you go and say, I cannot, I'm facing challenges, we go there and they give us all sort of excuses that they cannot service our demands. And that is why the Bank of Ghana, being the regulator of that sector, we had to go to the Bank of Ghana. So our first public protest, which was